What is up, everybody? This is Eric, the one and only Bay Area collector, and today I am going to be doing a very special set of videos. I'm going to be doing a mini series of consoles that I own, beginning with the third generation consoles from way back in the days up to the most current ones. Now, they're going to be in parts. I'm going to be doing them per generation. Now, I could have done a video for the first generation and second generation, which included the Atari 2600 and all the older consoles. Now, I did used to own those, but since I don't currently own them anymore, I'm not going to do a video. Unfortunately, I can't do a video on that, but I will be doing a video starting with the third generation of consoles. So, without any further ado, I'm gonna begin. But before that, I'm gonna mention that currently, the way I play games such as the Nintendo, Genesis, Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, I use a Retron 5, a Hyperlink Retron 5. I'm sorry if you guys can see it. I use that system to play Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis games, but I do own a Genesis, actual Genesis console. That's the only 16-bit console that I own at the moment. But I play all the other ones in here. Sega Master System uses a cartridge-based adapter that you buy. This plays Sega Master, Sega cards, and Game Gear games. But since I am going to be talking about the third generation consoles, let me begin by mentioning the very first console that I used to own, that I owned for the very first time, and that is, unfortunately, I don't own the actual console anymore, but I used to, but I can play Sega Master System games, and that is, of course, the Sega Master System. Now, that console came out back in October 18 of 1985, and it was the very first video game console that I owned. The story being, what I'm going to be talking about is the story of how I acquired each console, because looking back, a lot of these consoles, there are very memorable stories behind them. And so with the Sega Master System, I first got that console because my older cousin, he used to borrow a Sega Master System from his friends, and I used to play it all the time after he owned an Atari 2600. And, he was saying that he was going to get a Sega Master System console of his own. So then my mom and my parents said, okay, we'll give you a console, but you have to decide between the Nintendo. He would also borrow the Nintendo from his friends as well, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES. And my parents asked me, what console do I want to buy? And, that was, at the time, for an 8-year-old kid, because I was like 7 or 8 at the time, it was a very big deal. And my sister and my dad was telling me get the Nintendo, and my mom and I were like, no, I want the Sega Master System. So, and then I said, well, Sega Master System, my cousin owns it, I can borrow games from him, and we can borrow games from each other and whatnot, and his friends. So I ended up going to Western Appliance in Oakland by Hangenberger's, no longer there anymore, of course, but a long time ago I went to that Western Appliance, I remember very well. And my parents bought me the Sega Master System for Christmas. Now, out of all the consoles that I own and I used to own and I own, the Sega Master System was probably one of my all-time favorite designs. It looked very futuristic. It looked like I ripped a hole in space and time and pulled that console from the future and brought it back over here, because even the light gun for the Sega Master System was very unique compared to the Nintendo one, and I loved it. Loved the console, but yeah, of course, compared to Nintendo games, that you can compare the games as far as, I wouldn't say quality, because there are some really great Sega Master System games, but it wasn't up to par with Nintendo. So, I'm going to fast forward, because eventually I got rid of that original Sega Master System console, and eventually when I was older, like in my teens, I really felt nostalgic and wanted the Sega Master System back. So one day when I was with my parents at the mall in Alameda, South Shore, the old KB toy store that was there a long time ago, they had on sale the Sega Master System 2. That one is the one that included the Wonder Boy. I'm sorry, not Wonder Boy. Alex Kidd in Miracle World. It included that game built into the console, and I remember it was going for $49.99. And I remember telling my dad, "Is like, man, I really want that console," but my dad was like, "Man, we don't have money for it." And I said, "Yeah, I know." So my dad was like, "How about if I buy you a lottery ticket?" He's like, "What if you win the money for the console?" And he said, "If you win the money, even if you get $50 or $100, you keep it, get whatever you want, and you can go buy your Master System console." So he took me to this little candy store. I think it was near where Walgreens used to be at in South Shore, right across from it, further down in the mall, because we used to always, by that time it was like kind of like the end of the mall. We were getting ready to go home. I remember my mom and my sister were in the store. Meanwhile, me and my dad went off to buy a scratcher. My dad didn't win anything, and lo and behold, I won the $50. That was like the most luckiest thing that one of the most luckiest times in my life. I'll never forget that. And so I got all excited. My dad said, "Go buy the console. Here's the money. Let me cash in the ticket for you." And I bought the Sega Master System too. Much later down the line, of course, I got rid of it, due to necessities when I got older, once I was a young adult. But that's a story for another day. But anyways, that is my story of the Sega Master System, and I ended up getting it back through the Retron. But the game that came with it, the very first game I ever owned for the Sega Master System, was Hang On Safari Hunt. And I remember that Hang On and Safari Hunt came bundled, I had a lot of fun with those games. And I remember that the first game that I put on my radar, 2 games that I put on my radar for up and coming, because I got the console for Christmas, and then my dad was, "I'll get you a game for your birthday, then another one later down in the summer or whatever." And the first game I wanted to get was Ghostbusters, and I did, and I already did a video about that. But anyways, that's my nostalgic trip with the Sega Master System. Now, I owned the Sega, moving back to when I was a young kid, when I first bought the Sega Master System. A couple of years later, I was, I liked my Sega, but then I was like, man, like I said, the Nintendo was, you couldn't compare the Nintendo to the Sega, because Nintendo had way better, I wouldn't say, well, it did. It had better games, had a bigger library of games, had games that caught my eye like Mario, Zelda, and such. And one of the games that I really, really liked of the Nintendo was the Zelda 2. But anyways, the next console that I owned after the Master System, I know I'm using this the Cool Baby because I have a mini console, but the next system I owned was the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, originally the NES came out in the US in October 18 of 85. Sorry, Sega Master System came out in September of 1986, a year later. Sorry, I made a mistake earlier. But anyways, the next system I owned was a Nintendo. So the way I bought the Nintendo, well, my parents bought it for me, was that one day we went to the San Jose flea market. And I was always looking out for a Nintendo that was cheap. And so my parents can see if by asking my parents I had any luck. So I remember being in a stall in the San Jose flea market, and I'll never forget this. It was this young boy, Middle Eastern boy and his family that were selling items, and lo and behold, they had a NES console complete, 2 controllers, the NES Zapper gun. It came with Mario Brothers, and it also came with Zelda 2. And I want to say it came with more games, but it was for sale. I asked, and I remember that it cost $80 at the time. So I told my dad, I'm like begging my dad, please, can you get it for me? And I told my dad, I explained to him, it's a good deal, and he got it for me. So that's the story of how I owned my very first, when I owned my first NES. Well, I kept that NES up until my young adult, after high school. I got rid of it, but of course I owned it way longer than the Sega Master System. So a console that brought me a lot of entertainment. Both consoles did. But yeah, yes, that's the story of how I got the NES. So anyways, this concludes my my third generation console. Oh, and by the way, the games that I got, like I said, it was Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt and Zelda 2 that I remember that came with the console when I bought it. But that concludes my third generation consoles that I own, that and how I got them. In the next video, I'll be doing the fourth gen, which are the SNES, Genesis, and the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16. I'll be discussing those consoles in the next video. I'm gonna be doing this series. It's probably gonna be about like a couple of videos, but I don't know if I'm gonna release them back to back or if I'm gonna be doing them off and on, doing other things. But anyways, that's the story of how I got these consoles. This has been Eric the Bear Collector. Take care, you guys. Peace out.